Hi, my name is Sandip Soli. I'm an attorney with the Real Property Law Group. Today we're talking about hotel management agreements. When I talk about hotel management agreements, I typically would like to start out with the worst case scenario, because that is what I see when an issue with the hotel management agreement typically walks in my door, or whether it's the problem or a hotel owner or manager would like my help in negotiating and finalizing a hotel management agreement. I usually like to frame it for the point of what's the worst case scenario that can happen. And in my perspective, the worst case is when the hotel owner terminates the hotel management agreement, typically citing a lack of fiscal responsibility on part of the hotel management company or hotel manager. The owner may claim monetary damages for alleged financial losses. And in the worst case, the owner may allege gross negligence, wrongful acts, or fraud on the behalf of the hotel management company. Now, those are all allegations in an effort to terminate the agreement and avoid paying compensation to the hotel management company. So, to avoid that situation, it is important for hotel management companies to comply with their hotel management agreements. Typically, the most important portions of a hotel management agreement are the provisions that deal with an annual operating budget and a capital additions budget. In the annual operating budget, there will be monthly P&L estimates and departmental budgets with which the hotel manager needs to comply. And there'll be capital additions budgets that provide estimated capital expenditures for the year, categorized by departments, and providing refurbishing details on replacing furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It is important to get the hotel owner's consent if you're going to exceed those budgets. With respect to hotel management agreements, another important aspect is to report to the owner. So financial reporting provisions are extremely important for hotel management companies to comply with and make sure that they communicate monthly and annually to the owner as to the financial status of the hotel property. There are monthly reports with balance sheets, detailed P&L statements, and management fee expenses that need to be provided to the owner on a monthly basis. And then at the end of the year, you'll have annual reports to the hotel owner, providing an annual balance sheet, detailed P&L statement, and also reconciling the management fees and expenses for the year. Now, these hotel management agreements typically cite compliance standards with which you'll be reporting financially. Often they're citing generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP compliance. Often they'll cite the Uniform System of Accounts for the lodging industry, the most recent edition. There'll be provisions for audits. There may be even provisions that talk about what the industry standard is to deviate from your budgets. And finally, it's in the best case for both parties to have force majeure provisions. So if there are things that are out of the hotel management company's control, there are exceptions for expenses that may happen because of, say, an earthquake or a fire or some other event that's out of the hotel management company's control, where the costs end up being higher than expected. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, obtaining the owner's approval prior to going over a certain dollar threshold is extremely important to prevent disputes with the owner or potential termination of the hotel management agreement. It's important to get approval for corporate charges. It's also important to get approval for any overruns of allocated charges by department or otherwise. Another very risky area are capital projects. If you're renovating your hotel, expanding your hotel, building a new hotel, these are high budget risks where you're dealing with very large numbers in capital improvement projects or new builds, and you need to make sure that you do whatever you can to finish the project within budget, or otherwise have contingency plans if you're going out of budget. I often help hotel companies with their development and construction contracts, and in those contracts we often have very detailed exhibits with plans and specifications detailing what will be built, as well as a very detailed budget, providing in lots of different detail and line item spreadsheets exactly how much the expected cost will be for that hotel improvement, that project, with contingencies built in for some overrun fluctuation. And finally, in those capital improvement projects, in the contracts, we'll make sure we have a project schedule. So even if the cost of the projects are within budget, it's oftentimes the delay in a project that makes the labor more expensive than anticipated. And so it's very important to keep the project schedule as part of the contract to make sure the contract and the construction project is done within time. Sometimes there's some grace periods built in for reasonableness, but otherwise you need the incentives there to make sure the project is done on time and obviously on budget. In addition, there are issues of franchise compliance. If you have a franchise agreement with a certain flag, you'll need approvals from the franchisor as to capital projects and budgets and the type of finishes that you're having. And finally, you may have separate technical agreements with various consultants as well as the contractor in finishing those projects. And those are agreements that you should have reviewed by an attorney experienced in those areas to make sure those are done properly and to prevent costs from being beyond the budget. That's hotel management agreements in a nutshell. I'm Sandip Soli with the Real Property Law Group. Please contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.